Hello and thanks for joining the Tuesday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Ozubaku. Today on the program, Governor El-Rufai speaks about Godfatherism in politics, claims to have dislodged 4 godfathers in Kaduna. Labour, organized private sector demand sack of Jenko's Discos as Vice President Yemi Osinbajo admits that there are problems with the power sector. And later on the show, Nigerian soldier who raped the girl in front of her parents court-martialed and dismissed. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju, Emeka Madunagu, and Tolu Ogunjobi. So if you are ready, let the hangout start now. No doubt, the menace of Godfatherism has bedeviled Nigerian politics for years. But Kaduna State Governor Malam Nasir El-Rufai says early preparation for elections and wide consultations to connect with the people is the key to defeating Godfatherism. Speaking at a gathering in Lagos at the weekend, he said the formula has helped him defeat 4 godfathers in his home state of Kaduna. Are we in for a political revolution, gentlemen? Babajide, let me start from you. Directly when I read that report, El-Rufai made reference to Lagos State, that out of the 5 million registered voters in Lagos State, 1 million people partook in that exercise, that it's because people refused to come out. And he said if, anybody that wants to retire the likes of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2023, it's just a matter of getting 2 million votes to retire the Godfather of Lagos.
Well, he didn't particularly say the Godfather of Lagos, and he didn't mention names. He was being smart, because the truth is, El-Rufai has not retired any Godfather as far as Kaduna politics is concerned. He lacked the courage, he uncharacteristically lacked the courage to mention the so-called godfathers that he defeated. El-Rufai won the primaries of the APC and went on to win the election in 2015 based on his support for Buhari.
Yep.
Buhari raised up his hand, and that was it.
And Buhari is so popular in Kaduna State.
He's extremely popular in Kaduna State. They were suffering in the queue. Some of them were sleeping in the queue. They heard that Buhari, they had been in the filling station for 3 days. They heard that Buhari was in town. They abandoned their pains and went to see Buhari. Is that popular? He's a cult figure in that area. So anyone that raises his hand up, people will vote for him. That's where he lives. He's a Katsina man, but he's lived most of his life in Kaduna, the little Dantoro way. That's where he's lived. So he's popular. El-Rufai was not known as a political figure. That's why a former governor of the state actually called him the accidental politician. He didn't have any political structures. He just rode on Buhari's popularity to power. So he didn't need to defeat any godfather. And even in 2015, when he eventually he got a second term, his performance in 2015 was a lot better than his performance in 2019, because you could see that unlike 2015, the PDP pushed him all the way. He defeated his opponent by less than 200,000 votes, and the PDP won more assembly seats this time than in 2015. So the truth is, in the APC in Kaduna, because for someone to be a godfather, that person must belong to your party. Godfatherism begins to work even at the level of primaries. It's the godfather that will determine that you first win primaries before you even get to contest. So who is the godfather? Who is that distinctive figure in Kaduna politics? Who is a godfather in the APC? Except for Buhari. There's no such person. You can't call Nkuyi a godfather, because even governorship of Kaduna State, Nkuyi had been chasing it. He too has not been able to win the thing. So Nkuyi himself needs a godfather to be able to become governor in Kaduna. So this is the thing. Who? Or is he referring to Shehu Sani that he got his...
one-time senator.
Yes, that he got his boy Ubasani to defeat. Is he, Shehu Sani, who is like a younger brother to him, has he suddenly become a godfather? So because these are the people, and Hunkui, these are the people that he could say, yes, he defeated.
How about that national vice chairman of APC? What's his name?
Abdul Kadri. Inua Abdul Kadri is not a godfather. He's just a party executive. And he didn't contest against Inua Abdul Kadri. Inua Abdul Kadri didn't enter any elective position. Inua Abdul Kadri has never, because what he's saying is that in Kaduna there are people, if you don't see them, you cannot win. Inua Abdul Kadri is just a lawyer from Sokoto State. He's a lawyer from Sokoto State. He has never been that kind of figure that you must, you now call a godfather, except if the meaning of godfather is completely lost on Malam El-Rufai. You know, so there is no distinctive. If you go to PDP, someone like if it's not in your party, it's not your godfather. Let's face it. This is politics. It's not in your party. How can they be a godfather? Someone like McCarthy, for example, is in the PDP. He was very active in the last dispensation. So you cannot say you have defeated him. So people, yes, you may have won the election. But Buhari too lost the election like 3 or 4 times. So those times I was losing election, will it be right for someone to say Buhari has been retired politically because he won an election? Is it that simple? So McCarthy was active. He still remains active politically. So you can't say that, oh, you have retired McCarthy, for example. No. Because once people are able to sponsor even young people, they get into the House of Assembly, so then get into federal legislature, you can't say that politician is not active. Or is it Balarabe Musa that you say you have retired? Because Balarabe Musa on his own decided that, okay, I don't want to be an active politician anymore. I'm old. So I'm passing my structures on to Musa Falalu. So, and it was under Musa Falalu, under PRP, that people like Shehu Sani came out. That is still being active. To crush a godfather, that you must render that godfather, you must incapacitate him to the point that he has become someone that people cannot even go to for any form of political rescue or anything. No. So this is the thing. This is just a cheap shot at controversy by the little man in Kaduna. Just a cheap shot at controversy, because at the end of the day, what you are looking for, it makes it look so simple. Oh, get 2 billion. If you get 2 billion. 2 billion. We've seen people who have spent billions in this election, in this Nigeria, and they still didn't win election. In today's Nigeria, even to get into the Senate, you may need to spend billions. And people spend such money and they don't win. People like Seyi Makinde, who have been contesting, let them go and find out how much they spend now. So to say you can unseat a godfather, just because you have 2 billion, and then you will be going into those two people who refuse to come out and vote in Lagos, you'll be going into their homes for 4 years. That is ridiculous.
Emeka, is this not a big contradiction? I thought even El-Rufai is from the APC, and the people holding sway, the government in Lagos, is APC. And so who does El-Rufai want to teach how to retire? The national leader of their party.
Yeah, but you know, El-Rufai is a controversial figure. I mean, even when he was in PDP, he was, you know, he had this penchant for taking shots at even leaders of the PDP. Even the book he wrote, Accidental Civil Servant, you saw the things he wrote there. And
Obasanjo did third term.
Yeah. And so, and you even saw he took some pot shot at Tinubu in that book. So you see that El-Rufai is a controversial person. I mean, he chose a female, a Muslim, in a Muslim woman as his running mate for this election against
They did that to galvanize the
popular
Muslim,
run. Yes, you
Muslim
know,
base.
and of course in a way to say that Southern Kaduna didn't really matter in his own calculations. So you have to situate the personality of El-Rufai within the kind of politics he plays. He likes to muddy the waters. I mean,
Court controversy.
yes, of course, you know, there has been talk about Asiwaju Tinubu, you know, I mean, having his eyes on the presidency for 2023. You know, he hasn't said anything about it, but you know, there has been talk about it, that, oh, Tinubu wants to be president in 2023. So I think El-Rufai is also riding on that talk, which is unsubstantiated as we speak.
We see him as a potential threat.
He's riding the crest of that talk to say, okay, all right, fine, we will make sure, all right, in Lagos, which is his base.
Might be not the same ambitions.
No, in a way, he's even saying that, you know, first of all, that in fact the man whom they are saying is.
He says some of them exist only on paper.
So that the man actually has no base. You know, well, was he speaking for himself, or was he like, is it Chino Achebe's proverbial bird dancing in the middle of the road, you know, to drum beats from a drummer in the forest? Well, it's still early to say, but I think definitely it's one of those things that show that the politics, that the politics in the APC is not yet, you know, there's no cohesion really in the APC. You know, the leaders of the APC that should actually galvanize support for President Muhammadu Buhari, who is yet to be sworn in for a second time, are now fighting themselves, fighting over this, fighting over that. And it's not even going to help the party, because the party in power cannot be in opposition to itself. Now, when people read things like this, there's the impression that, did we actually gain anything by kicking PDP out? Have we gained anything by bringing APC in? If a leader of APC, a governor and a leader of the party who come out and take direct pot shot, everybody knows he's referring to Asiwaju Tinubu. Take direct pot shots.
Have the courage to name
take direct pot shot at a leader of the party. What does he say about the hierarchy of the party? The other time, it was the national chairman, Adams Oshomole, who indirectly took some pot shots at President Buhari, sort of insinuating that the president is not really in charge of his government. So when leaders of the party make such unguarded statements in public, it shows that something is wrong. There's a problem with cohesion.
Babajide, is this a kind of a sign of what to come, or what might befall the All Progressive Congress when you start seeing this kind of direction?
Well, people can organize any kind of event and bring in a rabble rouser to come and talk. It's not unheard of. We live in the season of controversy, where people will compare Michael Jackson to Beyonce, where people will compare Beyonce to Gladys Knight. Funny things happen, and even in politics, we see these things. But the truth is, and which I'm insisting, El-Rufai did not retire any so-called godfather in Kaduna. He should name the godfather. If he's in the habit of naming names, it shows courage. The other day, he was attacking members of the cabal, Buhari's kitchen cabinet, you know. He had the courage to do an interview with Sunday Trust also, where he took them to the cleaners, that they were not originally part of the party, that they had hijacked the party and all that, you know. So he should have named names. So we too, students of political history, we will now say, oh, that is true. Or is it Baba Ahmed that he will say he retired? Because Baba Ahmed himself does not even have any political structure in Kaduna. He left the state to go and work for Saraki in the heat of the disunity within the APC. So who has he retired? No one. Who is the godfather? The politics of Kaduna, there is no distinctive godfather. You cannot, so is he his friend, Namadina Sambo, that you will say he retired? Are they in the same party?
And has he retired? As Sambo retired?
Before you can become a godfather, and I think El-Rufai himself has gradually, is becoming a godfather now, having installed Ubasani as the senator for Kaduna Central. No, you have started the job of godfather. Because I doubt if Ubasani could have won on his own. So you two have become a godfather. You've been putting people, you put local government people here, this and that. You installed the party chairman in your state. You have become a godfather. The godfatherism, you cannot wish it away in Nigerian politics. It's a fact. Politicians who have built their careers over the years, they will continue to wield influence. People will continue to go to them. And some of them have money bags with deep pockets. They are money bag politicians. People will go to them and say, okay, how can you help me? Today, the former governor of Nasarawa State, who is now in the Senate, Abdullah Adamu, he had to ride on the back of a godfather to become governor in 1999. And that godfather was the former MD of PPMC.
Okay.
That's the man who owns Amana Suits in Abuja, those hotels. Before people began to open their eyes to Abuja, they were even made quick money earlier. Under Abacha, he was the MD of PPMC. That is the man who installed Abdullah Adamu as governor of Nasarawa State. Abdullah Adamu cannot deny it because he knows I'm saying the truth. Because at times you want to get into politics, you don't even have the money.
And so you don't even know anybody.
And you don't know people. The person who makes the money available automatically becomes your godfather. We can't wish away godfatherism. Because you can't come from anywhere and just think people will come and vote for you. It's not beans, as people say. You have to be ready to mobilize people.
My first caller, Mukhtar, is calling us from Kano. Thank you for joining us, Mukhtar. Hello. Mukhtar, go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah.
You are listening to your monitor. Go ahead with your contribution.
Mr. Dide, how are you doing?
I agree to you, Mukhtar.
Yes, I want to contribute to what you are discussing now.
Okay, Mukhtar.
Yes. I'm just talking about El-Rufai, who claimed to have dislodged 4 of his godfathers. You see, El-Rufai is biting the fingers that fed him. If you look of who is El-Rufai from the beginning, and what is he today, and what is he aspiring to be tomorrow, all the things that those who help him to be what he is, now he will reap what he sowed. Because politics is a dirty game if he doesn't know. His calculations might be wrong. But the day that will remember that godfathers that bite their fingers will now come, and he will now regret it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukhtar. So, Emeka,
yes.
Your last take on this?
Yeah, for me, I think El-Rufai should realize that this is the wrong time to start muddying the waters, because the candidate of your party was declared the winner of the presidential election. That's President Muhammadu Buhari. And preparations are on for his inauguration for a second term. So the best thing to do now is to rally members of the party around the president so that he can unveil his policies and programs for the second term and begin to work towards it. The party's victory at the presidential elections, is being challenged at the tribunal. So if leaders, or this is the time for the leaders of the party to come together. But if the leaders of the party, if Asiwaju Tinubu now decides to reply him, you will see the big bats will start flying. And then some people, their supporters too, will start attacking it. And then you know what? Attention will be taken away from President Muhammadu Buhari's programs and policies for the second term to another tough. What is he going to do for the country? We are facing a lot of problems right now. So I thought El-Rufai should have really even addressed the problem. His state, Kaduna State, is facing a serious problem of insecurity. He didn't talk about it.
Solve the problem in
you have not solved the problem. Insecurity in your state, where people are being kidnapped anyhow and all that. You've not rolled out. In fact, he has not rolled out any plan.
He does not have a plan.
You're talking of a godfather who had, when Asiwaju Tinubu was governor of Lagos State, and he had some security challenges. So he took certain actions, he took certain actions that were able, that led to, that brought the security problem down. Now, but you are governor of Kaduna State, and people are running, people are scared to travel by road, and you are hitting at the man. Come on. There should be fairness.
We have to leave there.
Commentary.
Yeah, still to come. Organized labor, private sector demands sack of Gencos, Discos, as Vice President Osinbajo admits that there are problems with the past sector. Tolu Ogunjobi will be joining us. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Journalist Hangout, reaching you from the station of the year, television content actor, and our business correspondent, Tolu Ogunjobi, is joining us. And now, a popular saying among Igbo people in Nigeria says, a god that outgrows its usefulness risks destruction by its followers. The major players in the country's power sector are being castigated for poor electricity supply. Recently, labor unions and organized private sector called for the review of and revocation of the licenses of the generation companies, or Gencos, and distribution companies, also known as Discos, over poor performance. They are of the view that the Gencos and Discos should be sacked for failure to improve power supply 5 years after privatization. Meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo admits that there are problems in the sector, as most Nigerians still lack electricity. He said the sector needs a lot of re-engineering to deliver. Let's hear from the Vice President on this.
Especially committed to changing the narrative in the power sector. Today, that sector, after it was privatized, still remains challenged in delivering power to many Nigerian homes and businesses. We must act as a matter of national importance, and we are committed to doing so, to rework and re-engineer the sector for much more effective performance.
Well, Tolu, looking at what is happening, because I've tried to investigate this contract with the Discos and the Gencos, and I think the minister actually shed light on, it was like what we signed, what was signed in 2013 is so cumbersome that you can't just say Disco, go, Gencos, go.
It's really difficult for the government to, at this point, withdraw or, go against that agreement that they reached in 2013, because it involves a lot of stuff. When it comes to money, it's been involved billions of dollars that the government might not be ready to even pay at this time. Now, this issue of power sector, it's really, it's a structural problem. It wasn't really addressed from the scratch. When they were buying this distribution companies, as in taking charge of it, that's the private investors, the issues with labor, the issues with infrastructure and all of that was not addressed. People looked at it with the eyes of the telecommunication sector. They thought it was just going to be like the Glows, the MTNs and all of that of this world. But they didn't know that there were a lot of critical issues surrounding the power sector. They didn't check all of this out, and according to some people, they say cronies of government at that time took over these Discos. There has not been capital investment also on the part of these Discos to actually improve what they made on ground, only for few of them. And they keep saying there's no cost-reflective tariff. Yes, we know that tariff in this part of the world is low, but what are we getting? A country of 200 million people, according to what we have, and we are doing less than 5,000 megawatts. When a country like South Africa of 60 million people is doing more than 50,000 megawatts. So a lot needs to be done. There needs to be a total re-evaluation of that agreement. But I don't think government can opt out that way. It is not possible. They need to reach an agreement with the investors, reactivate whatever has been done and look forward on how they can really make this work. Nigerians want power supply. They don't want to listen to all of this logistics and all of this, but the thing is, the structural problem, a sector that was abandoned for more than 30 years, you can't expect this privatization exercise to just address all of these challenges. The Ajeros of this world that came up to even say that it should be cancelled, they didn't even allow some of these private investors to get access to the facilities they were paying for. So there were a lot of issues, labor issues, government issues, bureaucracy, and all of that affected the growth and the actualization of this dream of making the power sector
Actually,
work.
who's at fault? I'm buying something, I should prepare my mind that I'm buying the liability and I'm buying the assets, and I should do a due diligence. And you that you're going to sell, government, for the interest of Nigerians that will put our trust and everything, you should know that you should sell to people with competence.
No, it's not simply a lack of competence. People from varied backgrounds can invest in any sector because you are very not going to do it by yourself. After Dangote is not a petroleum engineer, but today is building a refinery. Anybody, if you have the wherewithal, you can invest in any sector. You can build an hospital. You get the right people to run it for you. So the problem is not simply that, oh, some money bag somewhere came and just bought. We always fail to look in totality at the problems bedeviling the sector. Capitalization is a big issue. These guys don't have the funds. But can we honestly convince companies like General Electric to come here and invest when we are still regulating the price? When we are still selling at 31 naira and the cost is about 88. Yeah. I mean, let's look, who will come and invest in a sector where it's not started
We're
to make
selling
money?
at 31 naira.
Yes, and the cost is about 88, the national average.
Nobody's paying subsidy.
You remember that even Fashola supported them when they tried to jack up the tariff the other day.
So why is the tariff that low?
There are things that you can't do because you think of the political implications and all that. Yes. I mean, Nigerians rose in a wave. We do not have sufficient electricity. And look, when people talk about GenCos and DisCos, they imagine that, once we sort out the problem with those ones, it's all over. I mean, it's dishonest to think in this way because you also have the transmission company that was not privatized. And no one can tell me that with the transmission leg of this power sector is all fine. No, they have their issues. If we generated December 17, I was looking at some of the things that I had done in the past. December 17, 2018, we generated 5,222 megawatts. We have capacity to generate 8,000 megawatts. The VP and others boast about it. But we cannot. We cannot will, the transmission company of Nigeria cannot will 5,000 megawatts at this time without expecting that within 24 hours there will be problems. Because even this did not last 24 hours. The highest we've done, February 7, 2019, we generated 5,375 megawatts. But TCN was only able to wheel 4,303. So there is a kind of disequilibrium. If I can generate 8,000 megawatts, why shouldn't the DisCos be able to distribute 8,000 megawatts? Why shouldn't transmission company of Nigeria be able to transmit 8,000 megawatts? I mean, until we achieve the kind of what's it called, equilibrium across board, we cannot go anywhere. We are saying that, look, even if you solve some of those problems, you change these people, there are problems. Look at in the Southwest, for example, we'll be suffering. because some people breached the gas pipeline from Escravos.
That's what is happening now.
Yes. So now they are trying to fix it. But the implication is that about 4 power plants are not working because you can't get gas supply to those power plants. Once anything happens to that gas pipeline coming from Escravos, Egbe, which is the biggest in West Africa, you cannot get power supply from Egbe. You cannot get from Olonshogo. You cannot get from Motosho. This is the way it is. So at the end of the day, you and I will suffer. And there is serious gas constraint too. Apart from that, gas constraint across the Gencos are suffering because they can't pay their gas bills. 7 power plants. We have 21 gas-fired power plants. 7 of them complained to the regulator that they can't find money to pay their gas suppliers. So if the gas suppliers refuse to supply because you are owing them, how do you then generate electricity? So it's a multifaceted problem. It's not this.
Is it that in our lifetime, in our generation, because we keep whining about this, what is the way forward?
Yeah. The way forward, the Vice President has said it, Shimaja has said it, that the system is not working and it needs to be overhauled. Even the Gencos have said so. The Discos have said so. But you know, the usual Nigerian problem is this. Everybody knows what the problem is. But nobody wants to solve the problem because we are the problem. Why do I say that? Now, Labour is saying, sack the Gencos, sack the Discos. But you have a conundrum with the refineries. Government cannot say, anytime government talks of selling the refineries, Labour comes up. No. You cannot sell refineries. You cannot do this, you cannot do that. So those refineries are just there. Government cannot sell, government cannot run.
And we are not making money from them.
Refineries are there.
Now, we forget one thing. There's a difference between government money and private money. You see, when it was NEPA, government could just, okay, there's a problem here. Government could just quickly look for money and throw into the problem, solve it, and that's all. But this is private sector money. And private sector cannot just bring money and throw into a problem like that. The private sector is not wired that way. It will have to be sure that the money, it will have to be sure of the source of the money and the utilization of that money. Then again...
But we've been giving them money.
Again, the Gencos recently said that, you know, what they got from system operator was that 3 months average demand was 22,000 megawatts, but they have been able to only give about 5,000, leading to suppressed demand of 17,000 megawatts. So what it means is that, like my colleague here said, South Africa is generating 50,000 megawatts. So we should actually do a total overhaul and be looking at a minimum of 30 to 40,000 megawatts because the population is growing.
So what is this national grid thing about? That's in 2019 we are talking about.
I tell you,
know, when anybody generates, you pass through national grid to be distributed.
Indeed, that issue of national grid is something that we really have to look at. And I've seen that, well, with...
constitutional matter.
Yes, it is a constitutional matter, yeah. And I've seen that a little bit, they're trying to break out of it. Because now you see the issue of willing buyer, willing seller. They've started doing that. When you're ready to pay, they give you regular power. This is between discos and large corporations and all of that. Another thing that government has been doing is the energy mix. They've been trying to do solar and all of that for major markets in the country. I know of Sura market in Lagos. I know of Ariaria market in the east. I know of Sabongiri market in the north.
In the north, in Kano, yes.
Now these things are working. Go there now, the generators are growing dust. Yes. They are paying more, but they calculate the amount they spend on generator and the stress.
You get value for our money.
So you get value for your money. And there are some big estates I know in Lekki that are also doing that in Lagos now, that they don't use generators, but they pay more. That is willing buyer, willing seller thing. But many people, how many people can really afford that?
The mass of the people.
I think they need to decentralize that grid issue. The states should be able to generate to a level. I know Lagos is doing a little bit of IPP. I don't know how many megawatts, about 16 megawatts or 12. I'm not very sure of the figure, 12 or 14 megawatts. But I think if we get to a point, you now have to generate to the grid. So all of this passing to the grid, and when we don't have enough power supply, and you're pushing to the grid, I don't think it works that way. So there should be the whole of the power sector needs to be checked. The distribution end, the transmission end, enough of funds have been pumped into transmission, despite the fact that it is government owned. And even distribution, government has been supporting them, CBN funds and all of that coming in. But what do we see at the end of the day? The investors are there to make money. If they don't make, what they will spend is when they take off their running costs and maintenance money, pay salaries, that is when whatever is left is what they can push into the sector. And what the sector needs is far more than what the sector is getting. So the grid issue, I think it should be decentralized and open it up.
Projecting into how to solve this problem real time, what and what can we put in place? Long-term solution.
First and foremost, I don't believe that we should simply scrap the contract that we have with this discourse. It will do a greater damage to us as a people and as a country.
Are we going to pay them?
No, not only are you going to pay, you are going to send the wrong signal to foreign investors that you are a country of people who do not honor their obligations. We already have that problem with some of the concessionary agreements that we've had in the aviation sector and other, where you will not, you see clearly that there is an agreement in place and government will just flout it. Mavis bought equipment, radar, the rest of them, and it was supposed to run that subsector of the aviation sector. But what did we see? Suddenly they just said, no, that's Mavis should go. And they went to court. They kept winning in court. And we are reluctant to look at what Arik did. Babala King was supposed to control both the local airport, the whole terminal, and the new one that he built. It was the agreement. So, but people like Arik at that time said, no, I'm not leaving this place. You know? So at the end of the day, how do you expect him to make the money that he's supposed to make? And the world is watching. You signed a deal. This power roadmap that will come up is similar to what they do. In fact, I can say we borrowed it from India. But at some point, India decided to subsidize. Because when you subsidize, it then allows the investor to recoup what he has invested. But it is for a time. Once you stabilize the sector and the sector is beginning to do well, you can pull back from subsidizing. This is the method that was adopted in other countries. But what have we chosen to do? We are simply just throwing money at the problem. Yeah. Since 2013, we've been giving them money. But even the money that we are giving is not enough. Let me tell you, the truth is, to ensure that the power sector, we have regular supply of electricity. The World Bank has projected that we must invest for the next 10 years consistently. And the kind of money that the World Bank is talking about, even a consortium of Nigerian banks put together as a consortium, they cannot find the money. Because it's expensive. This is not a cheap business. We can talk about South Africa. We can talk about South Africa. But do you know how much they've invested to be where they are? Over time. They can do 40, between 40.
That's it. Since 1913.
I've been doing it. And it's coal that they even rely on so much. Now, we used to rely almost entirely on hydro. We are now back to relying on thermal gas plants.
Let me quickly pick. Isaac is calling us from Gombe State. Thank you for hanging out with us, Isaac.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
What a great show.
Thank you, thank you.
I want to ask Babajide.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to ask Babajide.
Yeah.
If the discos are not doing well, if they are not doing well, so why should their contract be extended?
The best thing to do is to open up the sector for more players to come in.
Yes.
By themselves, you know, they will go and find money. They will go and find money. And if they can't find the money, everyone will leave them behind. Open up the sector, let other players come in, whether they are from the US or from everywhere. Just liberalize that sector. Once that sector is liberalized and more people can come in to provide the services that those discos are providing. 11 discos, we have 11 discos. If people are not, I want a situation where we will have up to 22.
Or even 40.
Or even more.
Or
So
40.
if the people are not happy with the services that they provide, they should be able to move to the other service provider.
After the licenses have expired. So government can now look at it, take those licenses, and break those licenses into smaller licenses, even bring in states. Bring in states. If there are rich local governments that can also be part of the sector, even if it is in solar, let everybody...
The problem with solar is expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive.
That's why people are going off it.
We must start somewhere.
Shino is calling us from Lagos. Thank you, Shino, for joining us.
Hello, good evening, Uncle. Good evening, Ayo, and to your guests.
Good evening, Shino.
Good evening, Ayo, and to your guests in the studio.
Good evening.
I want you to know that greed is at the center of this problem we are having. It can never be a rocket science for we to fix power in Nigeria. This lucrative business, for Christ's sake, and you see, when Babajide was talking that somebody called that they are not performing, should we continue to manage them and continue to condone them? For it's only in Nigeria that we keep on going around the circle and looking at a problem that is so big, it's a difficult thing, it will take a monumental effort to solve. It's only if we have the love of a country at heart in the first place. When that privatization, when this one,
Shino, my time is fast spent.
I know we are going to run into a problem because, again.
Thank you, Shino. I really have to allow Tolu to go, but Tolu, the pricing issue and the prepaid meter issue. I want us to talk about that too.
Distribution companies have come up to say that the tariff is not cost reflective. That means it can't even cover their cost. That's what it clearly means. And there's supposed to be a multi-year tariff review, which is supposed to be done periodically, which has not been done. Okay. Issues around prepaid meter is also another issue because people just pay, many people pay for what they don't consume because they are estimated billings and all of that. But the discos are saying that they cannot also fund metering every Nigerian. That is also a challenge, which also has to do with funding. So all of it comes back to funding. There's no funding for meters. There is no funding for all the activities. So how then do we improve?
Who should be responsible?
They are saying the tariff is too low, that if they increase the tariff, it is jacked up. Yes, if you do some research, Nigeria's tariff is a little bit low. Yes, fine.
So but from that 23 naira, Abi?
Yes,
31.
And it's even higher than that. So nobody is paying that.
It's going to be like 80-something, Abi?
There is a differential, and nobody is paying that differential. So that's
the national average.
That is the
Discos charge different rates. You know, discos have different rates. But there is a national average, and that national average is 31.5. Wow. You know, so, and if the cost is actually 88, then it suggests that you can't continue like this. Let me tell you, there was even a time one of the discos, I think they even boasted that, look, come and take your thing.
Daughter.
So it's not really...
come and sell. Who want to sell? If any buyer.
It's not.
We have to move on now. A man deserves what befalls him. It is the way of nemesis. Now, the one that reaps wherever he or she sows. A private with the 27th Task Force Brigade of the Nigerian Army, Tijani Akiwe, has met his Waterloo after visiting horror on a family in Vuniyari in Jobe State. Tijani was arrested by police after he was alleged to have raped a girl in front of her parents and forced the brother to have sex with one of the siblings. It did not stop there. He smashed the head of the boy with a pistol and for refusing to commit the abomination. He has been court-martialed, dismissed, and paraded by the police. Beyond parading, this, I think, is this sane at all?
That's what I was going to say. I think the guy has some mental issues, some mental health issues. And really, that should be seriously looked into, because for somebody to go to such despicable levels, such bestiality, that is bestial. I mean, it shows the person has serious mental issues. And I think the military this is a wake-up call. The military also needs to look into things like this, because it may suggest that could it be war stress or something, you know? But for somebody to do something like that, and I was wondering, when he was in, what were the parents? Did he tie the parents? Couldn't they have attacked him or something? Did he tie them down? Were they helpless? No, but was he holding the gun and, I mean, engaging in the...
Let's not blame those,
you know?
Because
but again, I'm not even trying to blame them, but what I'm just looking at one other side. But what I'm trying to look at is that guy must be taken to a psychiatric hospital. And maybe he should be adequately punished. Maybe confined to a mental health institution, chained somewhere, because he is a menace to the society.
It's really disheartening.
Babajide, can you shed more light on this story?
No, you see, there is something called combat stress, and it's not peculiar to Nigeria. In 2006, an American soldier raped a 14-year-old girl. They murdered the sister and her parents. They set the house ablaze. He was put on trial, and in 2009, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, only for him to be found hanging in the cell. He apparently committed suicide. A lot of negative things that American soldiers did in Afghanistan and Iraq were blamed on combat stress. When soldiers have stayed too long at a location, they start misbehaving. Sometimes they turn the gun even on their own colleagues, on even their girlfriends and others. So it's important to rotate soldiers. Once they become homesick, they've not seen members of their family for some time, they will start misbehaving. So this is a wake-up call for the Nigerian Army to rotate those soldiers that have stayed for too long in the combat zone. Let some other people relieve them so that we don't continue to experience this kind of thing, you know. Sometimes they even form themselves into gangs, like the Americans did, form themselves into gangs, and they will say, we are going to this place, I'm going to rape someone here, you know, and
we will do it.
That is the terrorism that is happening in Iraq and other places in the Middle East could be blamed on some of those aberrant behaviors of U.S. soldiers. Now, in our own country, this must not be happening. I'm happy that the army has court-martialed him and the police have paraded him preparatory to his trial. But I only hope that we will ensure that we try him and make him pay for what he has done, because most times this is the last that we just hear. We won't hear that he's been convicted. And it's the same people that will now get into the society and be carrying guns. Some of the people being arrested for armed robbery these days are dismissed police officers, dismissed soldiers, you know? Yeah. So we have not been able, we need to monitor people like this. Igbe's behavior is very shameful. You'll be really ashamed of him. So I saw his photograph. A young man said, how do you behave like this? How do you even manage to sustain an erection standing before people, before a family? I mean, how do you do that?
Mental case.
He has thoroughly lost it. It then means that a lot of those guys, a lot of the people carrying guns and wearing army fatigues and all that, they've lost it. Their mental cases.
There could be cases that have gone unreported.
No, a lot. Look at the one that happened. Look at the one that happened in Adama. That he killed like I think 3 of his colleagues over a woman.
So Amnesty International have been writing. They might not support all what they've been writing, but cases like this
it shows that some of those things are happening.
Tolu, you want to?
Yeah, issues around the military these days. I think the news we really get to hear these days. It's really worrisome, and I think this really needs to be checked. And you know, we need to really know the kind of people that carry these arms. We see them on the roads morning, night, and you know, you don't even know what to expect from them. So I think more needs to be done. Their sanity, we need to really know how well they are even before they pick these weapons and go on the road.
And they need to check them from time to time.
It's not an easy job fighting. I mean, fighting. The Nigerian military has really been under so much stress. You know, from ECOMOG now coming to Boko Haram and then facing international security issues. So all those things can take a huge toll on soldiers, on officers. So what it means is that the military command should take steps to also help them.
I think lately the IGP just changed even the timing where the work for the policemen to 8 hours or something.
You see that even that one, what the IG has just done will not work because he has not got the manpower to make it happen. Talk to policemen. They are just saying this thing will not work. I went to a place, I don't want to mention the town. Look, the policemen in that village were so few. And in fact, on this day, it was only one person. That is the person who has like their secretary that was on duty. Very few. So we don't have the manpower to sustain the new shift system that he has come up with. You will see in the fullness of time. But those people carrying guns, some of them, there must be routine checks on them. So that mad people like Ahigbe, we can quickly discover them and take their guns from them. Remember Timothy McVeigh, who came from Iraq and just went to bomb a crèche in Oklahoma. A crèche, just slaughter those children for nothing. And he didn't utter a word throughout his trial. He didn't utter a word. You know clearly that McVeigh had become mad totally. You know, so this war situation is unfortunate. They call it friendly fire when they turn against their own colleagues. And it's happening. Even in Nigeria, it's happening. People turn their gun against fellow soldiers and they kill them. So the combat stress, we have to look at it. It's a big problem.
But again, I think we should also commend his colleague that reported this incident. You know, I said I'll make mention of that. It was his colleague that reported.
I didn't bury it.
Yes, his colleague must be commended because you see things like this. You know, when you name and shame, such people, you know, you bring integrity. You raise the integrity of the military.
A lot of that might have happened and I've even gone unreported.
With his sister. What for now?
Sir, thank you so much.
It's very sad.
Emeka Madunago, thank you so much for your contribution. Tolu, I hope that in my lifetime we have steady, regular power supply.
And affordable.
I tell you.
And thank you so much, Babajide Kolade.
Pursue alternative sources.
And that's our offering today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. And also watch Journalist Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Zubaku. See you tomorrow. God bless Nigeria.